Hey guys, Jedi Marine here with Paul. Once again, we're going to be not talking about weapons today per se, but we're going to be going over the Second Amendment, which gives us the ability to carry said weapons. So as you can see here, I'll highlight it, make it easier. I'm going to read it off here. The Second Amendment states, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And this has led to a lot of controversy, especially from the kind of the more liberal side of things. People very, very much do not like this amendment. Have you experienced that at all, or do you know people like that think we shouldn't have guns, whatever?
Oh yeah, several people at my work, they're pretty liberal in their ideas, and they don't like the idea of anybody owning guns, and they would be more than happy to get rid of the amendment completely. I've heard them say it themselves, they were like, if I had the power to, I would just completely get rid of it. And I was just like, oh boy, because I knew that day was going to be a long day of arguments on the political scale. But I've definitely run into people like that.
Yeah, and it's the most frustrating thing, because the amendment was originally put into place, and it was put as the number two, the Second Amendment for a reason, but it was there to allow citizens to fight back against the government should it decide to, reach a tyrannical level before, because all the founding fathers and all the people that were there with them fled England because they weren't a fan of the very strict rules and regulations on everything that they had, especially religiously.
Oh yeah.
And so they put that in place so that you could defend against your government should they, go batshit crazy down the road.
Which politics historically have been doing forever. That's one thing I've found so historically consistent over the years. Politics suck. Politicians lie and all that kind of crap, and death, taxes, and politicians lying are probably the most consistent thing in the world throughout history. So
yep. Well, and the frustrating thing about it is you'll hear politicians now go and they're, I'm very much for people being able to hunt, in my state and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, this shit's not about hunting. It was never once ever meant to be construed as the ability for you to go hunt. That's, that's just something people did back then, so there was no need to grant you a specific right to be able to go hunt and provide for your family. And
yeah.
So when I hear politicians especially use that argument, like, yeah, we want people to be able to hunt, that's why we only want them to be able to use bolt-action rifles, because that's all you need to go shoot a deer. It's like, no, you're obviously... And these people are intelligent, so when they didn't get to be where they are by being stupid. It's like, the intent behind the Second Amendment, and you have a reason for only wanting people to have bolt-action rifles.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, and, that's the same thing with the magazine capacity ban. You don't need 30 rounds to take out a deer. You're absolutely right. I don't need 30 rounds to take out a deer. I do, however, need 30 rounds in case my government decides to go, full-blown tyranny, Stalin and Hitler and all that crap.
Yeah.
That's when I need 30 rounds. The deer don't shoot back, so...
Well, and then you get the people like, well, yeah, when has that ever happened? When have people ever needed to use these sort of, use guns against the government? And it's like, look how our government was formed. They used weapons against a government that was oppressing them. And now we have, our nation. Our nation
Yep.
literally wouldn't be here if they didn't have the ability to fight back.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and it's like, you don't even have to go that far back, Stalin, Hitler, Pol Pot, the whole North Korea debacle with all the Kim Jongs and Kim Ils, and, you don't have to even look far. You don't have to look back 10 years, and you can already see places all across the world where if the people had the ability to fight back, that country would not be as much of a problem. I guarantee if people in North Korea had the ability to fight back against the government if they not only found out exactly how oppressed they were, just because they're all brainwashed over there, they're kind of crazy. But like if they had the actual ability to, they would rise up against, their government and, become free, just like South Korea. So
Yeah.
it's just, you don't have to look far back to even the founding of any nation. You just look back a couple of years and you can all see exactly how owning a firearm in defense of your family, property, your nation, your freedom is so, so important.
Yeah, and another argument that I've heard is, how do you expect to fight back against tanks and, the full firepower that our military has? And that's true. My AR-15's not going to do jack shit, to an Abrams if I was to go against an Abrams. It just won't.
Yeah.
But one, we've got a lot of Iraq and Afghanistan veterans that know the weak points on all our vehicles. But two, just look at Iraq and Afghanistan, and you can go back to Vietnam and look at that as well, where we used the very best and most high-tech equipment that we had, against the insurgents in Afghanistan and the Taliban, or the insurgents in Iraq and the Taliban in Afghanistan. And yeah, we've killed a shit ton of them, but they're still not defeated in the traditional sense. They are still fighting back. They're still killing our people. And guerrilla warfare is something where technology kind of gets thrown to the wayside, because it comes down to who can outmaneuver who, basically, and who can hit and run and do as much damage and then be gone. And I guarantee that'd be the sort of fighting, should things go sideways here, that's exactly what would happen.
Yeah, and that brings up another point. I hear this all the time. What if the military, comes to our doors? Like, you kind of forget the whole point that everyone in the military is an American. They love their country. They're not fighting for the government per se. They're fighting for their country. And so how many vets do you know, or how many people that did you serve with that would be like, yeah, I'd fight against the American people? I guarantee none of them. None of them. They could get all the orders all day. They'd be like, no, we're not going anywhere. They'd sit wherever, or they'd just be like, fuck you.
Yeah, it would definitely, you would definitely need the UN to send people to fight against our citizens, because I'm sure some of our military would. You can't say 100% of our people wouldn't do it, because I'm sure there's those pricks out there that don't give a shit.
Blue Falcons.
But the vast majority would not fight against our own citizens, and so it would be against a UN, sort of cooperative
peacekeeping.
Yeah, exactly.
Quote.
And if we didn't have the weapons and the ability to fight against that, then we'd be fucked. And I'm not willing to go that route. Have you heard of the new law that's being proposed in New York about ammo?
No, I haven't actually.
They are, I don't know the name of the bill or what it's called, or what the number is for it, but they're proposing to where, so I think they have the 10-round mag, limit there. Each mag can only have 10 rounds. They're proposing that you can only buy, or you're only allowed to buy twice what your magazine is capable of holding every 3 months. So you can buy for one magazine. So if you have one mag that can hold 10 rounds, you can buy 20 rounds every 3 months, is what's being proposed.
That is so retarded on such a level.
And knowing New York, it's going to pass. Considering everything
New York,
else they've got past there.
Chicago, or no, Detroit, New York, I think Washington, D.C., and basically anywhere in California have the strictest gun control laws.
Yeah,
I think just recently in D.C. you could own a pistol.
Yeah, I think that's a relatively new deal there.
And actually, just here locally in Georgia, in Kennesaw, near the Kennesaw State University, it's actually required that you own a gun. It's not enforced, of course, but it is it's a law that you own a firearm.
That's cool.
It's interesting because the day that bill was passed, violent crime rates plummeted. And I just find that it's a very interesting correlation. And then people go out and say that the more guns there are, the more shootings and all that crap happen, when in actuality, statistically proven, that has no correlation.
Mm-hmm. It really doesn't. Well, people then they try to argue, look at Europe, look at England and France and Germany, and their low gun deaths compared, per capita to ours. It's like, well, sure, of course they have much lower gun deaths. They also don't have like 300 million weapons out amongst the population.
Yeah.
The weapons to people ratio is way, 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 way less
So dramatically low.
than ours, which is fine. If that's their way of going about it and the people there don't want weapons, then, more power to them. But you can't honestly compare England and us when there's such a vast difference in the amount of weapons each had. If England had per citizen the same amount of weapons that we do, and still their gun laws or their gun injuries and deaths were near zero, then I think you could make an honest comparison and figure out what they're doing versus what we're doing. But
Yeah.
they're not. They're not even close.
That brings up another good point. Their gun violence is down. So let's take England, okay? Their gun violence is lower than ours, that is correct. But their stabbings and their violent crimes are much higher than ours. Like just a couple of years ago, that one Muslim guy was slit the throat of that British Army soldier.
Yeah.
In the middle of the street, he was just like,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yep. Well, people were walking by too while he's there, like screaming, hooting, and hollering at somebody filming.
Yeah.
And it's like, fuck you. If a concealed carry person was there, they would have pulled their weapon out and forced him to get down or just shot him. And
I would have just said he would have charged. Be like, oh, sorry, officer, he was charging.
like, yep,
Oops.
he's being crazy. But it's kind of like arguing, if you go to a country that has a bajillion cars versus a country that has very little cars, of course there's going to be more car accidents in the country with more cars. It's just going to happen. You can use
goes with it.
anything that any comparison, I guess you could use. Cars is just an easy one, but yeah, I mean, the more of anything you have, the more incidences you're going to have with that item, regardless of what it is.
Yeah.
And people don't see that, and it drives me insane.
Yeah,
Like
and that's a big thing. There's a big difference between accidents and crime. Sure, accidents happen. Guns either have, a malfunction and can go off, or 90% of the time it's user error. Somebody didn't check their weapon, and now their foot's blown off. So stuff like that does happen. Accidents happen. But when it comes to crime, it's a little different. So low gun populace in countries like England, where not everyone has a gun, very few people have guns, the gun crime, again, is down, while the violent crime for, say, knives or like baseball bats or bludgeoning weapons are considerably higher than here in the U.S. And even in the U.S., our gun crimes are not very often. The media puts a big spin on things, making it sound like there's a new mass shooting every other week, when in actuality, mass shootings have actually gone down.
Yeah, and overall gun crime has gone down over the last 15 years,
yeah.
something like that.
Oh, yeah. But the media would have you assume that every white dude is now carrying an AR-15 going into schools and shooting up the place. Every other week. It's like, it's not exactly true. But granted, that's the media and politics for you.
10 to 12,000 deaths related to guns every year in the U.S., and that includes police, run-ins with the police, just accidents, straight up people shooting other people. But 10,000, just 10 to 12,000 out of a country of 320 million is a fraction of a percent. It's nothing.
Yeah.
And
numerically, it's not bad. It's really small.
And
I really hate to say it that way because,
yeah,
it's
of course you don't want 10,000 people dying,
in,
from fucking anything. But
yeah,
But
when you're talking statistics,
mhm.
numbers are a factor.
Yeah, and I don't know. And people, well, people need more training. They need better training. Blah blah blah. And it's like people, even the most well trained have accidents at times. I mean, there's videos of police officers accidentally shooting themselves, and they've had fair amounts
That
of
one guy shooting
training.
him
And people that are professional shooters just fuck up and
in
they shoot
training,
themselves on
and
accident. It happens. And with weapons, obviously, there's risk associated with them in general. There's no getting around the fact that you are using something that can kill you, plain and simple. And
yep.
I don't know. It's just for like my aunt is very anti-gun, which is kind of interesting because she married a very right wing. Like he preps, like he has all sorts of extra food. He's got a bunch of guns. He's a police officer, and yet she's about as far left and as far liberal. Like she'd be best friends with Hillary Clinton if given the opportunity, and so getting into these debates with her is just mind numbing because this is the second that I throw any of these facts out at her, she just resorts to name calling. And I'm
Oh
like,
yeah, I've been called a racist, a white supremacist, a slew of other names I probably shouldn't say.
yeah.
It's interesting how those go around.
When I find that those always get thrown out the second you present facts and they have nothing to counter those facts with, it automatically resorts to name calling and you don't know what you're talking about. And in regards to her, I'm like, aren't you like fucking 45? Do you have to resort to name calling? Like, come on now. Let's be
Adult.
a little more mature here. Like, I get it. Your whole thought process on this is fucked. So you're upset about it, but no need to call me names.
Yeah.
No point to it.
Doesn't get anywhere.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, is there anything else you wanted to cover on this?
Uh, no, I think I'm good. I think people kind of understand what we're trying to say.
Yeah, and if you guys, throw out your thoughts on this too, even if you don't agree with the Second Amendment, if you think there's different ways to do it, if you are against guns in general, by all means, let us know. Don't resort to
Yeah.
name calling. Don't be, a little baby about it.
Especially if you have, opposite views than either of us, because it's always good to hear somebody else's views, just so, maybe you hear something better and change your mind, or maybe you understand your own point of view a little better. At least that's what I found.
And
So,
and two, like once you start calling people names, especially over the internet, I know I personally make it like my life goal to make you angry and punch a wall. And so if you start calling names, then I'll just start ridiculing you. So leave the names out of it, present your argument, and we'll go from there. But
yeah.
yeah, all right, guys, I appreciate you watching, and we'll see you later. Hey guys, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. All the links that you need to get in contact with me are down below. Facebook being the best one to contact me. I'm on my phone all the time, so it's just easiest for me to be able to get back to you with your variety of questions that you guys have. And yeah, if you need anything, by all means, hit me up. So please hit that subscribe button so you can keep in tune with future videos. And I'll see you later. Peace.